Welcome back to Indianomics. We have been hearing a lot of pressure from the Reserve Bank on banks to recognize this far unrecognized NPLs as NPLs and provide for them. What exactly are the broad numbers that banks have to take out from their profit and keep as provisions is the topic of discussion. We just had Pawan Agarwal of CRISIL and Ananda Bhowmik of India Ratings tell us that about 3 lakh crore is the unrecognized stress. Mr. Rajendran, you said that you broadly agree with the CRISIL numbers. Right. And separately we have this 150 accounts which Reserve Bank has recognized. Right. Let us talk pure numbers. This year, for the second half, for which numbers are not reported, how much more provisioning you think will be needed to provide for these 150 accounts?
Now, 150 accounts, I don't know what is the volume. Market is talking about somewhere between 1 lakh and 1,50,000 crores. Some of the banks are already provided for it. So not every bank needs to provide for it. Presuming that 50,000 crores is already provided, 1 lakh crore is to be provided. 15% provision requires 15,000 crores. And if it is spread over a period of 2 quarters, 7,500 crores per quarter is not a very alarming number for me.
Okay.
As far as the restructured accounts are concerned, Macquarie report says 41% of the restructured accounts which are coming for repayment today after completion of the moratorium is not able to meet the payments and becoming NPAs at that point of time. Presuming about 6 lakh crores is the NPA. I don't have the exact number. It's roughly about that number. 6 lakh crores, about of which 3 lakh crores is already completed the moratorium period coming out for the repayment today. Out of which 41% is failing. If it is failing, about 1,20,000 crores is failing. It requires about 15% provision as of now. Even if you talk about 25% provision which RBI is talking about, 5% provision is already made for these restructured accounts and 20,000 provision is to be added to it. 1,20,000 crores, 20% means about 24,000 crores is extra amount which we may have to provide.
24,000 crores in the next 1 year.
Next 1 year period,
okay.
Right.
Do you believe that just this 11.8%, that is GNPA plus restructured, I think 11.3 which is recognized, is all the stress? There is stress outside that. So what is your guess of the total assets known so far? I mean, several more may become bad, so but as of now, should we go with 11.8? Is that a fair number? Or should we think it is 13, 14, 15?
No, 11.8 may not be a fair number from my opinion, because there are some assets which will, which are having the stress inbuilt as because of this record of recovery or because of some evergreen efforts or for sanction of new facilities. Okay. It might have been concealed in some banks, but this will come out. Now, RBI is very clear about it. RBI doesn't permit, unless the cash flow is from the operations, RBI is not willing to accept it as a repayment at all. So these accounts will be shown as NPA. That is the effort in these 150 accounts. So some more NPAs may be declared in some banks, not in all banks. Outside that, what is the restructured accounts which are failing? That number is little higher when Macquarie report says out 41% is failing when it is coming for, that is a very very large number. So out of the restructured accounts with 40% is
what
failing.
What is your number?
No, my experience has been every quarter I was seeing about 5% is getting into the NPA in the past. So about 20% of the restructured accounts were getting into the NPA portfolio from restructured to NPA in the past. Maybe it may go up slightly more, 25%, 30%. Okay.
All right. Well, Anando, final question to you. How many banks do you think may report losses? The pace at which provisioning is demanded from the regulator?
I think if you look at the vulnerability obviously is there with the PSU banks, unfortunately. And our sense is that banks with a pre-provision operating profit percentage of less than 0.5%, in a sense where the ROAs are at 0.3 or 0.4 are obviously the ones most vulnerable, which I think would mean about 50 to 60% of the PSU banking space at this point. And likely, based upon their likely NII performance in FY17, is possibly under pressure of using up bulk of their profits for the additional provisioning.
Okay. Pawan, the India ratings number that the bottom half of the banks could be vulnerable, is that a fair picture? That will mean almost about 10 public sector banks.
If I look at our ratings, Latha, our ratings in public sector banks, about 9 or 10 of them have negative outlook, and then that's something that will give you a good picture of the likely movement in the credit profile over the next 12 to 18 months, and that really is about half of the public sector banks today.
Fair enough. Would you agree with that number? Those are the banks where we may see losses and where the government will have to take some serious steps in terms of either recapitalizing or consolidation or some such steps.
No, the loss reported is for a single quarter or 2 quarters. We need not think much into it. If it is continuous, then we have to worry about it. There are banks which have reported losses. Central Bank has reported loss, Bank of India has reported loss. That is a cleaning up process. As a one-time measure, when these 150 accounts are to be accommodated, some banks are going to incur losses. That is okay. But they will be in a position to come back. As Ananda rightly puts in, the liability side also a lot of responsibility is coming from the banks now. Now, all the bulk deposits are paid back. CASA ratios are increasing. The cost of deposit is coming down. The NIM could expand in the future. So, I think that maybe the ability to absorb losses may go up with the banks also.
Well, I just want to have last one question to all of you. Mr. Rajendran, the Reserve Bank and the government have been pressuring, telling the banks that there won't be any political pressure. Do you think that you already have a Sahara and a Vijay Mallya who have been declared as defaulters and various degrees of penalties have been imposed on them? Do you see 1 or 2 more business groups genuinely being taken on and made to pay?
That's happening today. I have not seen heard in the market that government has pressurized any bank on either the sanctions nor on the recovery.
And nobody has lost their assets, control of their assets. We know some of the big defaulters, groups like SR. Do you think that the government, the banks will go after them?
No, nobody has come in the way of banking taking action as on date. To what extent banks will be in a position to put together and act together is a different thing. There are a lot of legal hurdles which are coming in. But even the legal processes of Finance Ministry is talking about simplifying now, and the DRT courts being fastened up. There are no arguments at all, only written arguments he is talking about.
Yes.
The process will be hastened and probably will be in a position to realize at the earliest.
I'm a little doubtful about the legal processes getting hastened at all. Well, that's the final question to you, Pawan. Outside the realm of rating, do you think that it will be necessary for the government to move against one more group, or at least allow the banks to change the ownership of one of the most delinquent groups? Will that be an example which will automatically bring back money from some of the indebted promoters?
I think that process has already begun. If you look at the SDRs, SDR is a institutional response to a requirement like this.
And small pickings. We have not seen big guns like SR who have defaulted twice on their steel payments, twice restructured steel accounts. FRNs, they defaulted to their foreign lenders. Their OFCDs, they defaulted to their domestic in SR Oil. Do you see the government taking on some big group like that?
Yeah, again, I think the response has to be more institutional, which is, as I said, the process has begun. I think my understanding is that the SDR process is gaining momentum. The success of SDR actually will move ahead some of this process, and also the banks today are far more focused upon asset sales, and we have seen a lot of asset sales happening from some of the very large indebted groups as well. So therefore, the process has begun. It will take time given the legal complexities and the structure that we have in India, but we are on the right path.
Well, Mr. Rajendran, Pawan Agarwal and Ananda Bhowmik, thank you very much for joining me in this conversation. Key takeaways. One, the market's estimate, as you heard from the rating agencies, is that the total amount of bad assets is probably around 5 lakh crore that has not been provided. Bankers tell us that the whisper number doing the rounds for the current year is that at least 1.5 lakh crore needs to be provided for. But RBI officials tell us that for the next year, it is impossible to find out how much will need provisioning because it's a dynamic situation, will depend on steel prices and the India growth story itself. But fourthly, and that's an important takeaway, RBI officials told us that government and RBI are on the same page when it comes to cleaning up bank balance sheets. Fifth, government has assured banks that they're ready to provide whatever capital that is needed after the cleanup process is over. Also, RBI officials say that they are ready to provide any liquidity support if needed in the process of high provisioning should the banks need. As well, RBI stands ready to provide any regulatory relief that they believe is available. That is provided banks need that kind of capital support. But the message is that all parties want banks' balance sheets to be cleared. And the final takeaway, it would be very good if banks, government and RBI show the same commitment to go after at least one or two delinquent promoters and actually divest, seize their assets and bring in new promoters. That will perhaps make other defaulting promoters fall in line. All told, it appears that the entire exercise will make banks safer and cleaner in terms of their balance sheets, more reliable entities. As well, India perhaps will be seen as a place where crooks and defaulters are punished. Looks like the exercise is all for the best. That's it on Indianomics. Thanks for watching.